Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for joining me this week. So this week I'm going to be talking about Gemini, and Gemini was only made available in Hong Kong to all users without a VPN. I would say a few months ago. It's probably March 2026, but we can actually ask Gemini that. And so if you're interested in coming with me to explore Gemini and how to use Gemini as an educator, then please keep on watching. Okay, so Gemini was only made available in Hong Kong without a VPN, I would say in March, but let's ask Gemini all of these questions because it is a RAG model. So let's have a look. Okay, so I actually asked Gemini, I'm going to make a video about how to use Gemini in education. I want to start off by talking about when Gemini was available, Gemini was available to use in Hong Kong as it was only recently. And then I want to give 5 interesting user cases using different documents and outputs that's to do with, let's just have a look at the rest of the prompt, inquiry-based learning and mathematics. Can you first of all give me the suggestions and then I'll decide whether to build them or not. So I don't want to waste any resources. I'm going to look at the ideas first and see whether I want to build any of them. So, the sycophantic side of Gemini's coming out. That sounds like a fantastic video concept. Framing it around local availability makes it incredibly relevant for educators in Hong Kong who've been eager to use these tools without workarounds. Okay, a little sycophantic. But anyway, here's the context. Okay, so it was literally March this year that Google officially rolled out Gemini to all personal account holders. But it is worth noting that it was available, it says, before we had to rely on VPNs, but paid corporate accounts could access the web interface. Now with direct access to the web app, teachers and students across the city can use it as seamlessly in traditional Chinese, English, or even mixed code Cantonese. Wow, okay, I didn't know that. So I'm so happy that we are able now to use Gemini. You know that I only use a handful of tools, and so I am curious as it's widely used now with many schools in Hong Kong, especially some of the partnership schools I have, and it is free. I wanted to see its capabilities. So let's have a look at these 5 inquiry-based learning user cases. Okay, diverse documents and outputs. So one is the messy data. Students investigate if there is a mathematical relationship between a country's wealth and its citizens' life expectancy. So the input, so we can upload a raw, unformatted CSV or Excel spreadsheet containing global health and economic indicators. And then how Gemini is used, students upload the raw spreadsheet and ask Gemini to help them clean the data, identify anomalies, and suggest what mathematical models, linear versus exponential growth, might best fit the trend. The output. Gemini generates a clean, structured markdown data table alongside Python code that isolates the variables for student analysis. Okay, I mean, that's cleaning up data, so it's quite low level. I wouldn't say that it's leading students to deep understanding, but it's, just cleaning up messy data. I don't want to go through and read all of them, but let me look at the calculus one because I'm particularly interested in this one. So the scenario, high school students are exploring optimization or rates of change by looking at real infrastructure. So we upload a PDF of public planning document or architectural brief, okay, such as a new MTR station, or public park layout in Kowloon. I like the local perspective here. How Gemini's used. Students ask Gemini to extract the geometric constraints, coordinate systems, or area limitations hidden within the dense text of the PDF report. The output. Gemini synthesizes the document into a mathematical constraint brief, formatted as a clean summary, translating complex legal architectural jargon into clear algebraic variables that students can model. Okay, so that's not too bad. All right, let me just have a look. Okay, let's look at number 4, and then you'll see what else I asked Gemini. So code to simulation. So probability in the law of large numbers. Students want to see what happens to experimental probability when you flip a coin 10,000 times. Yeah, so I think A good use of AI in the mathematics classroom is to create simulations of large trials, which, okay, we can do with dynamic geometry software, but an AI model will do it much quicker and faster. So the input document, a plain, simple text file containing a student's rough hypothesis and a basic outline of an experiment. Great. I like how the student has to come up with the hypothesis and an outline of an experiment. And then the Gemini, how is it used? The teacher or student inputs the text outline and asks Gemini to turn this into abstract probability experiment into an interactive simulation tool. So the output will be this interactive HTML or JavaScript sandbox widget. Okay, normally it will be on the right of the page where students then can adjust sliders, number of trials, bias of the coin to visually watch the experimental probability curve flatten towards the theoretical probability. I like that. That's really good. I might decide to build that later. Okay, but you can see Gemini said, do any of these cases jump out? Not really, but I like the code to simulation discovery. So then I wanted to know, what is a summary of everything that Gemini can do, right? So it's core multimodal intelligence, okay, advanced reasoning. You can see as well, if I come down here, I've used the Flash model so that it's a little bit faster because I'm not asking for deep mathematics reasoning yet. I'm just asking for ideas, but I can use 3.1 Pro for advanced maths and coding, and the thinking level is standard or extended here. 3.1 Flash Lite is new. And then what else? It can do advanced creative generation. So it can do cinematic video using Gemini Omni, and that was just released recently. Image slide generation, okay, and high fidelity audio. It does have agentic actions and daily automation. Great. So you can schedule tasks with this. Gemini's come a long way. It actually has taken quite a while for Gemini to catch up, but I feel like it's a worthy opponent now to the other models. So Gemini has transitioned from an AI that simply assists to an agent that can independently navigate multi-step tasks across the web and your devices. Okay, 24/7 on-device automation, daily brief. So, I always like to know what the AI news is every day. I could schedule one of those tasks. And the deep Google ecosystem integration is actually a huge advantage because I do use Notebook LM, but I still have to use a VPN for this at the moment. Google Workspace, Google Home and devices. It can code an app ecosystem, so we can vibe code with it. And then here's the tier breakdown. So there's the free tier and the premium. Now, from previous videos, I'm a huge fan of Manus. And it's very difficult to convince me otherwise. So I said, well, let's just scroll down later. You'll see. I'll come back to those simulations. Are you able to give me a table with side-by-side comparison of Manus AI and Gemini in terms of its capabilities? Okay, so here we go. This is kind of very interesting. Core philosophy, Manus, task-driven autonomy. Give the system a macro goal, walk away, and let's execute. I very often give Manus a little goal. I then walk up the peak, I come home, and everything's there for me. Google Gemini, however, it's really about interactive collaboration. So you work with the model through conversational prompts, iteration, and tools. Okay. Core strength of Manus, independent multi-step workflows, web data extraction, scraping, and building standalone digital artifacts. Absolutely. That's why I love Manus. And what's Google Gemini? Multimodal comprehension, advanced reasoning, and deep research synthesis. Okay. Context window, Manus is moderate, optimized for localized step-by-step task processing, whereas the context window for Gemini is massive, up to 1 million tokens. Okay, processes hours of video which is approximately 1,500 pages of text simultaneously. All right, web interaction and browsing. So Manus, active and autonomous, can open multiple tabs, absolutely, fill out forms, navigate web logic, and capture screenshots. Now, what about Gemini? Informational scans the live web via Google search to pull real-time data, but does not manipulate external sites. Okay, that's a difference. Code and app building. Manus can run scripts in an internal sandbox, includes a web app builder to deploy live prototypes, websites, and simple tools. Absolutely. Now, with Gemini, it writes, reviews, and debugs complex code across dozens of languages and generates interactive UI widgets inside the chat. Okay, that's a huge difference. I've built so many websites and apps using Manus. Now, the ecosystem and tools. So, open integration architecture, including meta standards. Well, we don't know about that with Manus. We just heard from the Chinese government last month that they're trying to reverse that takeover. I don't know how they're going to do that, but let's watch this space. And then Gemini, deep native integration across Google Workspace, which is, I think, a big benefit. And then two more. Manus, background execution, high, runs completely unattended in the cloud to finish long research or compilation tasks. And then with Gemini, it's hybrid, uses persistent background agents for specific tasks, but is heavily optimized for fast real-time responses. And now here is the final statement, best use for. So Manus, automating market research, compiling price matrices into Excel, data cleansing, and rapid prototyping. And with Gemini, lesson planning. Oh, that's interesting. Data visualization, summarization, hours of footage, audio, and Socratic tutoring. Okay, main takeaway. You are framing this for educators. A great way to summarize is, here we go. So use Manus when you want an AI worker to go out onto the web, collect information from multiple school sites or curricula, and compile it into a ready-to-use spreadsheet without you touching it. And Gemini, use it when you want an AI collaborator to analyze a messy math student's proof, generate an interactive physics stimulation widget on the fly, or synthesize deep academic research papers into a lesson framework. That's really helpful. Okay, now I think this video is getting too long, so I think next week what I'm going to do is have a look at some of these simulation examples. So can you give me 5 examples of how AI Gemini can be used to create a simulation for mathematics? And watch out for that video, which I'll release next week. So let's actually test it to see what the simulations are like and the quality. But having tested it previously last week, it's pretty good. So thank you so much for joining me this week. And please feel free to hit the subscribe button. That really helps this channel stay afloat. And I hope to see you next time. Bye.